Welcome, everyone, to our event presenting the BDSU methodology that was developed in co-creation with the Yawanana people, Forest Trends, and Wildlife Works. We will do a brief presentation. Mike will speak, giving a general outlook. Mike is the CEO of Wildlife Works. Then he will hand over to Tashka from the Yawanana, and then Bida from the Yawanana, and then at the end, Mwangi will give a brief technical presentation on the design of the methodology, and then we'll open for questions. Mike?
Thank you, and welcome everybody. I am Mike Korczynski, and I'm the founder 27 years ago of a company called Wildlife Works. And the idea behind Wildlife Works from the beginning has been, if we want biodiversity or wildlife in our future, we have to make it work for the people who live with wildlife. And so we've been working on many ways to connect communities directly to finance related to conservation for 27 years. We're very active in accessing climate finance for communities in Africa, in Asia, and in Latin America. And most recently, we became concerned that climate finance wasn't flowing to those indigenous communities that have protected their lands against all the threats over all these years. And climate finance isn't currently really designed to do that. And we felt that was unfair, inequitable. So we began to look for a partner who could work with us to develop a biodiversity methodology that was based on the desires of indigenous people to represent themselves in the market. And I had been longtime friends with Beto Borges from Forest Trends. And so I asked Beto where he thought this would be a good place for us to look for a partner. And he introduced me and us to the Yawanana. And so that was 2 years ago, a little bit more than 2 years ago, just before Montreal. And we began a co-creation process with them from the beginning for where their role was to express what they would want a project to be for them that they owned in a biodiversity market. And we would help them understand what the market needs in terms of technology and monitoring and governance and things like that. So that's been the nature of our partnership, and we've been 2 years, and we now have the draft methodology. It's been out for review by experts, and we are beginning now to use the methodology in their territory as a pilot project. And so they're here today to express their own experience of working in this process. So thanks all for coming, and I'm going to give the microphone to Ashka.
Hi, everybody. My name is Tashka Yawanana. I'm one of the chief of the Yawanana people. The Yawanana people is located in Yawanana territory at the Rio Gregorio River, in state of Acre, in the Brazil Amazon rainforest. And we are here in this COP16 to show to the people, to the world, that how indigenous people have maintained the nature. The indigenous people is the best people that have maintained rainforest from immemorial time. And today, in 21st century, we indigenous people need to be compensated by that, because we have been this work, but we never been compensated. And the way that how we're doing that is mixing the new technology, studies, research, and traditional knowledge. It's time to to knowledge working together. For us was the first time when Mike and World Life Works went to the community. We accept a challenge. How we going to do with a work with a private company and one indigenous community from the Amazon? What the point? What do we have in common? What we saw, in common what we have, we love the nature. We want to promote and preserve. Because for indigenous people, the beauty is not just physically, but also spiritually. Every time we walk in the morning, we saw the nature. We saw beautiful everywhere. In the people, and the forest, and animals. And we want to continue keeping doing this. And the Mike team went to the community. And we choose 2 people for each community to do researches with the technician team. And in the end of the research was so beautiful because the young people were participating. They were so excited about it. Also, they say they walk in many places where they never been. Also, they discover new species that for us is common, but for scientific is not common. They never know. And we discover a lot of things in the community also about medicinal plants. And the most beautiful thing that these young people was training for the future. We do our own researches. Also, is a new social biodiversity project. It's very different for red and for carbon. For myself, I have been following all copies, all this on Kyoto at now. When the first talks about red, I say, oh my God, this is impossible for indigenous people because it's very distant from our reality. And we just compensate who already destroy. And if I was a farmer, I win when I destroy, I put the cows, and now I win again to reforest that. I say, for us indigenous people, we need destroy or be compensated. What a right for us. And I think that this new mechanism, the new methodology, help us continue protect our land, continue to preserve our culture, create a new economy, and also help people to continue have fresh air. I think it's time people coming together. It's no matter where you are. If you are in Amazon, if you are in New York, or you are Africa, or you are in Hong Kong, we are all connected. We all belong to a global village. Wherever we do, we affect each other. If you are in New York and pollute or in China, that's going to affect me in Amazon. The rainy time going to be late, and a lot of dry going to happen. Like this year. This year was the most dry season. Who is more affected by climate change? It's indigenous people. Because we live in every day our life, we depend of the forest to survive. In our land, we don't have a supermarket, we don't have McDonald's, we don't have Walmart, we don't have all this kind of stuff. Our supermarket is all from the forest. We hunt, we fish every day. We build a house from the material for the forest. We depend 100%. Our connection with the nature, they come from our spirituality. We don't see our landscape as a big dollar. We see our landscape as a home where we find peace and harmony. That's how we born, respect the little birds, the frog, wherever. For this reason, I think what we develop today with World Life Works is a methodology that give the value what we have in our land and bring a new economy for sustain what project we are doing today to preserve the Yawanana land, reinforce, preserve the language, protect our people from not having to do because we have our own economy, reinforce our cultural and spiritual manifestation. As I'm talking about, represent our future. Because with strong identity, with strong spirituality, our people have a future. And because I was talking with Michael the day about the legacy. What kind of legacy we are leaving for the future generation? Ask ourselves, what are we doing? Each of us have the power to make change. What are you doing where you are? Little action you do make a big change. Thanks for coming and listening to us.
Thank you, Tashka. I'll hand over to Bida now, also leader of the Yawanana.
Olá, me chamo Nishiwaka Yawanana, na minha língua, e em português os padres me batizaram como Biraci Brasil.
My name is Michioka Yawanana, but in Portuguese, the priests baptized me Biraci.
Eu e Tasca somos uma família.
Tashka and I are a family.
A gente vem da família hereditária do povo Yawanana.
We come from the hereditary family of the Yawanana people.
O pai dele é irmã da minha mãe.
His father is my mother's brother.
Nós temos sequência de trabalho.
We have been working together,
De luta, história.
fighting together, and have a history together.
Nossos avós que fez o primeiro contato com o homem branco.
Our grandfathers did first contact with white people.
Depois, nossos pais deram continuidade.
And our parents continued their work.
Agora estamos nós.
Now it's our turn.
Eu creio que daqui mais um tempo é nossos filhos.
And in a little longer, it will be our children.
Não só dentro do meu povo,
Not inside my people only,
mas nós, povo Yawanana,
but we, the Yawanana people,
no início da década de 80,
in the beginning of the 80s,
se juntamos a outras lideranças indígenas de todo o Brasil
came together with other indigenous leaders across Brazil
e construímos um movimento nacional.
and created a
Brasileiro.
national movement of indigenous people.
Eu fiz parte dessa primeira leva de lideranças indígenas criar o movimento nacional brasileiro.
I was part of that first generation of indigenous leaders to create an indigenous movement across Brazil.
E acompanhei todo esse processo, toda essa transição ao longo desses anos.
And I accompanied all of this process and transition throughout all of these years.
Voltando para a nossa realidade atual aqui desse painel,
Back to our reality in this panel.
quando eu comecei a ouvir esse projeto de crédito de carbono,
When I started hearing about carbon credit projects,
eu não achei diferente de mineração de ouro na floresta, desmatamento para criar boi, abertura de estradas dentro da floresta.
in many ways, I didn't think it was very different from mining and logging and exploitation and deforestation.
E sempre criaram um impacto diretamente para os povos indígenas.
Always creating some kind of impact on indigenous people.
Por isso eu nunca concordei.
That's why I never agreed.
Mas nesse momento, estamos vivendo um novo tempo.
But right now we are living in a new time.
No mundo espiritual Yawanawá,
In the spiritual world of the Yawanawa,
nós falamos que nós estamos vivendo um novo ciclo da humanidade,
we say we are living a new cycle of humanity,
um novo tempo.
a new time.
Nós estamos falando agora de mudanças climáticas,
We're now talking about climate change.
que todo mundo sabe que está afetando todo o planeta.
Everybody knows it's affecting the whole planet.
Nós deveríamos ficar tranquilos no nosso território,
We should be able to live in peace in our own territory.
porque desde a existência humana,
Ever since the beginning of human existence,
eu existo
I exist
no meio da floresta.
in the middle of the forest.
Hoje, meu território,
Now, today, my territory,
a água,
the water,
há milhares de anos,
for thousands of years,
está limpinha,
is clean.
minha floresta intacta,
Our forest intact.
os animais sem ameaça de extinção.
The animals unthreatened.
Vivemos em plena natureza,
We live fully in nature
desde os tempos imemoriais.
since times immemorial.
Eu deveria não me preocupar.
I shouldn't have to worry.
Mas como falou muito bem o Tascan,
But as Tashka said very well,
essa mudança climática
climate change
afeta todo mundo.
affects everyone.
Tu falou sabiamente, Tascan,
You said wisely, Tashka.
quem é mais afetado
The most affected
nessa mudança climática
by climate change
somos nós, povos originários,
are us, indigenous people and local
povos
communities,
indígenas. Porque a gente depende
because we depend
da saúde da natureza.
on the health of nature.
Se a natureza está doente,
If nature is sick,
nós também estamos doentes.
we also get sick.
Vocês vão sobrevivendo de todas as formas.
You survive in all sorts of ways.
Com tecnologia,
With technology,
consciência.
conscience,
Vocês vão adiando o tempo de vocês.
you delay your time.
Mas a gente sabe,
But we know
se nós não pararmos
if we do not stop
para refletir
to reflect
o nosso conceito humano,
our concept of humanity,
nós estamos decretando a extinção da nossa espécie humana.
we are decreeing the extinction of our species.
Não é eu que estou dizendo.
This is not me saying this.
Estamos vendo
We can see it.
essas grandes tragédias naturais,
These great natural tragedies,
as guerras,
wars,
muita pobreza,
so much poverty,
doença.
disease.
Nós não estamos podendo nem respirar mais o ar.
We can't even breathe the air
O
anymore.
ar está doente.
The air is sick.
Se tu respirar o ar, tu vai ficar doente.
If you breathe the air, you get sick.
Você não pode mais beber água.
You can't drink water anymore.
Você não sabe nem onde você pisa mais na terra.
You don't know where you're stepping on anymore in this planet.
Para isso não acontecer,
So that this doesn't happen,
meu povo
our people
sempre teve cuidado.
has always been careful.
Nós somos a própria natureza.
We are nature itself.
Nós não vivemos na natureza.
We don't live in nature.
Porque meus mestres, nossos laboratórios, nossa ciência
Our masters, our labs, our science
é a floresta,
are the forest,
é as medicinas ancestrais,
are the traditional
é os
medicines,
animais,
the animals,
é as plantas,
the plants,
é a água,
water,
é toda a natureza.
all of nature.
Nós Nós nunca perdemos o nosso elo com o divino Criador.
We never lost our bond to the divine creator.
Por isso nós defendemos.
This is why we defend
A nossa existência
our existence.
não é a floresta.
It's not the forest.
Nós estamos defendendo a nossa existência humana,
We are protecting our human existence
que o homem ocidental não entende.
that Western man doesn't understand.
Quando o Mike encontrou o Tascan
When Mike met Tashka
e começou a discutir esse projeto,
and started discussing this project
né, de biodiversidade,
this biodiversity project,
eu fiquei no meu canto.
I was in my corner at first.
Eu falei, mais um.
Another one, I thought.
Mas eu fiquei calmo,
But I remained calm,
fui ouvindo.
and I just listened.
Eu falei, esse sim,
And then I thought, this one, yes,
a gente pode discutir isso.
we can discuss this.
Isso aqui pode servir como um modelo
This can serve as a model
para futuros projetos,
for future projects,
pagamento por biodiversidade,
for payments for biodiversity,
com respeito à natureza,
with respect to nature,
aos povos que cuidam há milhares de anos desse território
and the people that take care of these territories for thousands of years,
e servir como modelo
and serve as a model
de parceria
of partnership
entre os povos indígenas
between indigenous people
e as companhias ocidentais.
and Western companies
Estou junto.
together.
Foi por isso que eu vim aqui para a COP.
That's why I came to COP.
E eu tenho essa esperança.
And this is my hope.
Nós estamos passando um desafio.
We are going through a big challenge.
Mike,
Mike,
são poucos homens que têm essa coragem de chamar os índios para discutir uma política de desenvolvimento que respeita as nossas tradições, os nossos territórios e o nosso meio ambiente.
few men have the courage that you display in calling indigenous communities to create together policies that respect and develop us and our future.
Porque aqui nós não estamos falando de lucro.
We're not talking about profit here.
Aqui nós estamos pensando quem é que vai ganhar mais do que o outro.
We're not thinking who's going to make more than the other.
E para mim isso não me interessa.
That's not what matters to me.
Aliás, pode interessar, mas não é o meu objetivo principal.
It can be of interest, but that's not my objective.
O nosso objetivo principal
Our main objective
é criar um novo diálogo
is to create a new dialogue
com o Ocidente,
with the West
que a gente pode
that allows us
oferecer um novo,
to offer
uma nova forma de desenvolvimento humano,
a new way of fostering human development,
tendo como nosso guarda-costa
having as our bodyguard
o meio ambiente,
nature
a natureza.
and the environment.
Muito obrigado.
Many thanks. Now, Mwangi, do you have the thing for yourself?
It's a bit difficult to follow after that. But so I think what I'll try to do in a few minutes is try to bring that passion to some. It's a bit boring. We are trying to actualize that passion. So that idea, that philosophy, that aspiration has to be somewhat built into an asset that the indigenous communities can take to the market and participate in a market situation. So what I will go through is what we've been working with, the co-creation process that Tashka alluded to, in order to try and capture what they feel about their environment and put it in a way that the market will be interested and curious about spending money there. So if you think about it, the concept, the philosophy is that the indigenous communities are living in nature in a way that's harmonious than most people do. So when you look around, you find that most of their territories are at a better state than the surrounding environments. The question is, how do you determine that? How do you defend that statement? So what we did is we thought, okay, let's start first with some eligibility criteria. So who can participate in this scheme or in this thinking? And apart from the requiring that the land that is participating is controlled by a community like an indigenous community or forest community, we also had two prerequisites. The two prerequisites are, that's what they talked about. These two prerequisites have to be met in order for a territory to participate. So first, using the high forest, low deforestation guidance, the rate of forest loss in that territory over the last 30 years or a minimum of 20 years has to be less than 0.22% per year. So you can go back and look at the satellite imagery 20 years ago, and the level of loss of forest must be a rate that's less than 0.22% per year. The other one is on biomass stock. So the first one is on forest extent. This one, if you want, is on degradation. So the biomass in the forest has to be above 90% of what is expected in a reference area that is similar to that, but is protected or near undisturbed. So a reference biomass of that forest type. So for the forests that qualify under those two criteria, then they go into the next step of estimating the intactness of biodiversity in their area. So the goal of this scheme is to estimate the intactness of the area in a way that can allow for a creation of an asset. And so what we thought that we are using only species richness. There's many ways that you can look at the integrity of an ecosystem. You can do ecological structure, you can do ecological functions, you can have distribution and abundance. But for now, we just thought the one thing that is very easily understood by the indigenous communities, by most humanity, is the species as a unit. So what we thought is that we will look at intactness based on the expected species in a forest like that versus the species that are in the forest today. So the main thing that just to bear in mind is that there will be a standard that will, once you have your target forest area, the standard will give you a set of 5 taxonomic groups. One has to be a plant, and then you have either a mammal, a bird, reptiles, amphibians, fishes, or an invertebrate group. And the standard will look at reference and come up with a full list of species expected based on the ecoregion that the area is. And then the standard will whittle that down into the baseline species list, which is a list of species that are dependent on forests or are under some level of risk of extinction. Here, there's also an opportunity for the community to build in some species that they consider bioculturally, socioculturally important. So once that is done, the project will go out and develop a sampling methodology that will be able to demonstrate how many of these species in the baseline list do we have in our territory today. Okay? And once they do that, then we have an indicator of intactness. So what I'll show next is the 4 kind of calculations that we'll go through. So first, you have each taxonomy group. You have the methodology, the methods that are going to sample that taxonomy group. You have your baseline list, and then you have the list in your territory. That gives you a proportion that will be the intactness of, it's a percentage. From that percentage, then of the 5 taxonomy group, you get a mean percentage from all 5. And that gives you a whole mean percentage for your territory. That mean percentage has been set to a minimum of 60%. for you to participate. That percentage is then scaled down to a scale of 10. So if you have 80%, you get an 8. If you have 60%, you get a 6. Below 6, you don't participate. And the maximum you can be is 100%. So the scale that for participation is 6 to 10. And that represents the number of units that can be allocated to a hectare of forest in your territory. And then the last thing is just to multiply that unit to the number of eligible hectares that you have in your territory. Okay? So that's basically the calculation of the intactness and the units. But we also have a section on biocultural and sociocultural assessments where we will speak with to the values that the communities ascribe to this biodiversity. So the values could be tangible, intangible, utilitarian, spiritual, cultural. So they will create lists of species that they use, that they like, that they interact with, and how they interact with them. And the idea is to create this narrative that will kind of buttress the unit. So the intactness is just a number, but there's a big story behind the number. And this is where the narrative will be created that we think will add a qualitative, strong element to the credit in the market. So just to quickly demonstrate how we see this happening. So for example, this is just a hypothetical community. Say they have formal authority on their land over the last 5 years, but they've been living in this land for more than 30 years, so they're eligible to participate. And then say the project was starting in 2023. The earliest we can get satellite imagery is the year 2000. So you have 23 years. You scale that to a rate of loss of 0.22, and the area cannot have less than about 95% of the forest that was there in 2000 for it to participate. If it passes that, then you look at the biomass. There are remote sensing methods today. You can assess the biomass today and the biomass at a reference period or a reference area. And then if it is above 90%, then the area can participate. Once you do that, the standard hands you the 5 taxonomy groups. You go out, you form your own protocols, your own methodologies to sample these 5 taxonomy groups. And then you come up with an intactness measure. So I'll show 5 hypothetical scenarios quickly that might give you a better idea of what we are talking about. So the first 2 are the eligibility criteria, and then the 5 are the taxonomy groups that are handed by the standard. In the first instance, this scenario is where this forest does not qualify because it doesn't meet the first criteria of forest excellence. So it's lost more than the threshold. The threshold is about 94.4. The second scenario is a forest that has successfully done all that. So the eligibility criteria are met and everything is above 60% threshold. The third one, it meets the eligibility criteria. It meets the minimum threshold of 60%, but 2 of the groups are less than 60%, so that would not participate. So there's a reason why we pegged the 4 groups that must fulfill the 60%, is to make sure there is enough ecological structure in the area to support a diverse array of species. The fourth one also participates because only one of the taxonomy groups is below 60%, and that's allowable under the methodology. The last one does not participate because even though only one of the taxonomy groups is below 60, the minimum, the mean, overall mean is below 60, so that doesn't also participate. So if you look at the 2 that participate, you multiply what forest you have by the original forest extent, so that's the eligible forest. That's their performance. You scale that down to 10. I'll not talk about the multiplier now, and then you multiply that to the forest area, and you get the number of units that may be issued to this project. So just to end, I think it's important that you think about this as a way of making sure that you set up strong methodologies for measuring your biodiversity, both temporally and spatially, so that we want to avoid false negatives. It's very unfortunate if a community may fail to find a species because they won't get rewarded for a species that is there, but we couldn't find it. So it's important to set up methodologies that find as many species as possible. We've set threshold because this is a performance mechanism. So although it's a reward for good stewardship, and that's why we've tried to set thresholds that enable participation, but also are a bit stringent so that the ones that participate are really the good stewards. And then the biocultural element is really important to really bring a story to the number. So the number is the one we take to the market, but we want it to be pushed by a story. So if you remember anything, just remember that this is a really fully co-created methodology. It's not easy. I think that's why people don't do it a lot. It takes a lot of time and effort to do it. It's fully owned by the indigenous group that participated in the creation. It doesn't require additional actions because they're things that they are already doing. So it cannot be used as an offset. So there's no additional actions that are required. And as Tashka said, this was just really a warming statement from one of the hunters in the Yawanana, who has been living in the forest for the last 27 years. But he found places that he never thought existed in their territory just through the pilot part of this project. We have not even gone into the full methodology. So it was really heartwarming to see that appreciation of the nature. So thank you very much.
I will hand over briefly to Mike for finishing statements, and then we can do a few quick questions.
Thank you, Monique. Yeah, very quickly. Mwangi said at the end, one of the co-creation principles that was clear early was that the community did not want their project to act as an offset for bad behavior. So very clearly from the beginning, these units are named as units to be independent of an offset or a credit that can be used in that way. The philosophy we had was that, and to a degree why there are thresholds, if you fall below those thresholds for forest extent and quality, you probably can participate in the carbon market, and you probably can get good value as a community from that existing market that is there. So, but the people who are being excluded from that market are the ones that we should value the most, the ones who have preserved their intact ecosystems against all the odds, but as a consequence cannot participate in the carbon market. So we set those thresholds working with the Yawanana to understand what would be workable for communities that have been good stewards, understanding that there will be indigenous communities that don't qualify. So this isn't, if you're an indigenous community, you automatically qualify. So because we believe that the market needs to recognize performance in stewardship and not assume all are equal, right? So those are the things that we've done that reflect the desires of the communities. And our belief in this is that if we can't figure out how to essentially put a value on the price list, that's what we're really trying to do. We would all agree that nature is priceless and that putting a value on it is dangerous, is risky, because it is priceless. However, if we're going to try and put a price on recovering nature, and we haven't figured out how to put a price on pristine nature, we're going to struggle. And so our belief is that we first must figure out as a society how to value pristine nature and reward those people who have been responsible for maintaining pristine nature. And pristine, I don't mean without human influence. I mean in the context. So this methodology is not for use in national protected areas in its first version. We have had lots of interest from governments to use it that way, but this is designed to reward people for stewardship of land. And the principle of protected areas, generally, there's no people. And so we might use it as a reference for how intact could be without people, but we aren't planning on this use of this methodology in protected areas yet. So those are some key issues, and I got to stop because we're going to get kicked out. and there's some food over there that you can enjoy on the way out. Thank you very much for coming.
Can we do a quick question? Does anybody have, quick questions?
So, first of all, congratulations for the efforts to develop this new methodology together with the indigenous people. So it's very, very nice. I will turn my question in Portuguese. I don't know if you understand. Ok. Então, principalmente Tasca e Bira, a gente está vendo que assim, tem várias metodologias, né, para tentar valorar a floresta e o conhecimento tradicional. E que bom que algumas estão chegando perto de algo que realmente reconhece todo esse valor, né, que o senhor trouxe para a gente. A questão que eu queria colocar é se vocês na metodologia estão prevendo como colocar esse recurso, né, nas comunidades e na floresta para realmente valorizar a cultura, para fortalecer o povo de vocês e não gerar desunião. Então, o que eu tenho visto é que muita gente se preocupa em como fazer o projeto para trazer o recurso para a comunidade e na hora de aplicar, isso acaba se perdendo, gerando divisão e tal. Então, eu queria ouvir um pouquinho vocês sobre isso. E a segunda pergunta, acho que eu vou fazer em inglês. The second question is if this methodology can be used for other traditional communities as quilombolas, riverines, and others. Thank you very much. I'm Marcelo from Xingu River, Brazil.
Valeu, Marcelo, pela pergunta. Então, o dinheiro constrói coisas belas e dinheiro destrói coisas belas também. Então, a gente vive num paradoxo onde o dinheiro tem que trazer benefícios reais. Para isso, a gente vem se preparando para que o dinheiro ele traga resultados que possam preservar o nosso território. Por exemplo, se chegar dinheiro sem um plano, ele vai mais atrapalhar do que ajudar. No Acre, em 2006, a gente trabalhou no PGTI. Aí depois nós transformamos o PGTI no que nós chamamos Plano de Vida Yawanana. Era pensar um futuro em 30, 40 anos, em todas as áreas. Na saúde, na educação, na proteção do território, na geração da bioeconomia, no fortalecimento da língua, das manifestações culturais e espirituais. Então, o dinheiro, onde ele vier, ele já tem um destino, já preparado para ele. Ele não vai chegar aleatoriamente, onde nós vamos saber o que fazer. Eu acho que eu estava até discutindo isso antes de vir para a COP com o governo do Acre, porque o Estado do Pará assinou aqueles 100 milhões de dólares do Leaf Coalition. Mas eu acho que o governo do Pará não sentou com os povos indígenas para saber qual é a porcentagem, como é que vai ser gastado isso nas terras indígenas. Não houve nenhuma consulta. É diferente lá no Acre, onde a gente vem tentando, apesar de que a gente tem muitos conflitos, mas a gente consegue sentar e conversar. E eu falei, no Acre, os PGTIs foram construídos, os planos de vida das terras indígenas foram construídos. O que está faltando é dinheiro mesmo. Não está faltando plano, não. Plano a gente tem muitos. O que está faltando é grana. Então, assim também, no nosso caso, nós já temos um plano pronto. Entendeu? Então, o dinheiro vai chegar para a gente implementar nas atividades que possa trazer benefícios reais para a nossa terra, para o nosso povo.
Traduzir. Oh, shoot. I'm sorry. I translated to Mike and I didn't. I'm sorry. In a nutshell, yes, you need to wrap up. You need me to wrap up, yes. In a nutshell, Tashka said that money can build and destroy beautiful things, but that they have been working and designing their life plans within the territory and across wider initiatives in the state of Acre. And they already know what to do with the money. They already know what projects they want. They have been working very hard and through their life plans in designing these strategies. And so whatever funds they raise through this already has a very clear and collectively constructed place to go.